Hello and welcome to Late Night with Olga Olgeson. I'm Olga and today is July 5th, 1919. Today we will be discussing the outcomes of the Great War. We are lucky enough to have with us three special guest speakers to speak on behalf of China, Germany, and the United States. Why don't you all introduce yourselves?
I'm Jingfei. I'm Gretchen Winerschnitzel from Germany.
I'm Michael Scarns, USA.
Thank you for being with us today. Why don't you all start out by telling us some background information about your countries?
Thank you. I guess I'll begin for us. I'm really grateful to speak on behalf of China. World War I was a really difficult and confusing time for the people of China, and at the beginning of the war things were going pretty well, but then because the Europeans were so occupied with the war, Japan decided that they would come over and take some of our land. After our central government in Beijing lost its power in 1916, we decided to enter the war and sided with the Allies, hoping that we might be able to join the peace table and stop Japan's advancements in our land, especially the Shandong Peninsula, where Germans had made concessions during the war.
Thank you. Ms. Winerschnitzel.
Well, first, Dankeschön, Olga, for inviting me this evening. Both Germany and I appreciate this opportunity to speak about the current life in Germany at this time. In the beginning of the war, Germany was very big, influential, had the upper hand, but the tides turned when Mr. USA and his army joined the war.
USA!
And because of this, the Great War was a very tough and challenging time for Germany. However, like I said, before the war, we were an expanding superpower and had surpassed the United Kingdom as Europe's leading industrial powers.
Thank you very much.
Well, as you know, America was pretty neutral through the start of the war, but first off, there was a certain country that did two things that really struck the heart of America. One being sinking a passenger ship completely filled with civilians called the Lusitania. I mean, they couldn't pick on someone their own size. And then what were you thinking? You end up sending the Zimmerman telegraph to Mexico, where it was intercepted, and we found out that you're trying to pay off Mexico to join the other side. Yeah, that worked out real well.
I feel a lot of the blame, and I'm only a spokesperson for Germany. I had nothing to do with it.
Let's not point fingers, Mr. Scarns.
All right, fingers are pointed up.
I think we should move on.
I think that's a great idea.
All right, well, whatever. All I know is that I agree with Woodrow Wilson in saying that somebody had to come in and make the world safe for democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Scarns.
You're welcome.
Why don't we move on and discuss your fatalities and damages?
Well, we sent about 140,000 Chinese workers to the Western Front. These were just workers. They weren't really soldiers, even though they did undergo some British military discipline. So we had about 140,000. About 2,000 died either from bombardments or air raids, even disease got some of our people. And those who survived were blamed for countless crimes, and hundreds more died from influenza that swept over Europe after the war. So not much damage physically to the country, but to a lot of the families there was a lot of hurt.
Well, we are wishing you luck in that.
Germany at the beginning of the war was equipped with about 11 million troops, which was roughly about 16.9% of our population. By the end of the war, we recorded about 2,036,897 military deaths and 426,000 civilian deaths, which was a total of about 2,462,897 casualties in total, which is very significant.
Yes, it is.
4 million mobilized, 110,000 dead. That's what you call winning right there. Okay? And 43,000 of those 110,000 dead were killed by disease and the Spanish flu and stuff like that. That's just total winning. There wasn't you couldn't say there was much physical damage because the war wasn't fought on the American home front. So,
This is true. Thank you. And how do you all believe your country's futures are looking?
Well, after the Treaty of Versailles was a major letdown, you know, we joined up with the Allies and didn't really do us much good because Woodrow Wilson withdrew his support for the Shandong Peninsula and gave it to Japan, of all places, in support for their money, basically. So a lot of the people of China were very upset, especially the young college students that had a huge protest, and about 3,000 at Beijing University, and we're on the verge of a complete shift in our governmental power, so very uncertain future.
I can see why. I would be upset if I was just overlooked like that as well.
Yeah.
Our future? Not good. Not good at all. Mainly because of the Treaty of Versailles that was signed at the end of the war. It placed a few legal restrictions and several military restrictions, territorial changes such as overseas and to France. A total sum of $31.4 billion for repression.
I think you mean reparation.
Reparation, sorry, I couldn't read my
That's
writing.
okay.
We're no longer recognized as a serious challenger in the United Kingdom or the USA as a leading world power. And it's just pretty tough times right now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
China offers you their support.
Well, I appreciate that.
The American future, one word, excellent.
Excellent?
Excellent.
Why would you say that?
I mean, come on now. We proved ourselves as a world power. I mean, somebody, once again, I'll go back to Woodrow Wilson. Somebody had to make the world safe for democracy. So it took 3-4 years of fighting until America came in, and with basically the big brother had to clean it up. You know, sweeping it in the dustpan.
Thank you. Now I'm just going to ask a few individual questions about your countries. We'll start with you, Miss Lynn. You all have, like you just said, been somewhat pushed aside now that the war has ended. How do you all feel about being looked over?
Well, you know, not very good. They had this huge protest from the students, and you know, we really hope that the United States, with its open door policy and commitment to the self-determination of all peoples, would really support us in hoping to get some of our land back from Japan, but the negotiation process just didn't happen in our favor, and none of our people on the peace table voted for the Treaty of Versailles to pass. They were overshot anyway. We can thank America for that, you know, and it's just no wonder the Chinese people reacted in such a way.
I can completely understand why. And Germany, Miss Winerschnitzel. The Treaty of Versailles, signed just last week on June 28th, as we just discussed, it was very hard on you. How do you all feel about basically taking the blame for the whole war?
Well, like you said, the Treaty of Versailles was very tough for us, but we do not feel completely responsible for the war, because in the beginning of the war we felt very threatened by France, and that is the reason that we preemptively invaded them.
Okay. And now, even though the United States was involved in the war for just over a year and a half, how did most of the country feel about entering the war officially?
We're ready to go. You can't sink a ship full of American citizens and expect to get away with it. All right, you can't try to pay off a very good ally of America and shares a border, I might add. You can't do that kind of stuff and get away with it. I mean, simple as that. Lesson learned. You know, sometimes it's called tough love. Sometimes, you know, you have to be tough, but you got to show love. And that's exactly what we did. We done here? Because I kind of got to go.
Feel free.
I
got this thing.
have one question.
Oh.
What is your status in the country? Are you like assistant to the president, or who are you anyway?
I'm a VIP.
You act very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, let's have a warm round of applause for our guest today. Thank you all for joining us. And tune in tomorrow when we sit down with hardened war veteran Adolf Hitler.
Germany at the beginning of the war.
Is anybody else hungry?
Excuse me, I'm
You got a
talking right
concession?
now.
Okay, guys,
Oh.
we're at like 7 minutes.
No shit, really?
6:50. Like, you took up 3 minutes talking about your intro. I think we
wasn't our
need
way
to
off
start
topic.
over.
That's great though. Now I'm not freaking out as much.
Yeah, well, we're only on the second.